Good morning and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and disembodied brain and hands, Justin, and probably John. Hello, everybody. Lots of people's chatting. Yay! Chat, chat, chat. Apparently this is a popular topic, huh? Good morning, everybody. Yes, I noticed we were channeling the marine mammal rescue before I got on. You know, totally all about it. Super, super, super. Yay. All right, cool. Look, it's a mushroom. It's a very large mushroom. If I would have thought about it, I would have emailed Christine to let her know that we were working on this today, because this is our first ever Christine Van Patten model that we are working on. Not our last, I suspect. Totally not ever our last. Especially once Bones 5 arrives, right? You could go back to watching the otters if you want. You don't have to watch me, debate fungal color schemes. Although I pretty much... David and I have already diverged, because I showed him the concept art I wanted to use, and he's like, I like that one. And I'm like, I like the opposite one. Because he doesn't like green. It's all because he doesn't like green. Like, that man needs to get over his green allergy. He totally does. Like, greens are wonderful. Greens are one of my favorite colors to work with. But yeah, so totally. Yes, good morning, everyone. Yay! Well, we're gonna have a bit of talk in the beginning, Kerniko, because I need to get my page. Where's my page? I did look up what page it was on last night. The monster manual is pretty beefy, you know that? It was on the Myconid. It's really close to here. You gotta love this concept art. Here, I'm gonna switch back to, actually you guys can see it up on Facecam. So you gotta love, actually, the monster manual concept art here. Let's see. So they're really cool. So I like, here, let me get the glare off the camera. There we go. So I like the green guy, and David likes the little guy, because it doesn't have as much green, I suspect. Like the little guy is more of a teal and orange color scheme with some green, and the big guy is more of a green with some red, orange, and blue. Actually, you know what? Let me go back to Facecam and turn off Sploosh. 1 second. Turn off Sploosh. There we go. Now I can see this better as I bring it up, and I can make sure that it doesn't have... There. So that's the actual monster manual art, and I really actually love it. So I'm going to work on one of these. I am favoring the big guy with the green, though. Like, I really like this color scheme, probably because I like the green blue... I like the green and brown with the red, orange, and the blue. And there's even some purple on his paws. So that's what I'm kind of thinking. That is what I'm kind of thinking. Here, I'm going to put a bookmark here so that I can keep the page, i.e. a sticky note, because that's the way we roll, right? So yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. The other one, like I said, the other one has more blue kind of teal. So I don't know. Let's see here. Although, I think the big guy, has more possibilities for, the underside of the cap. Like, I think I would make her hair, her cap, the red-orange. So, if we look at this guy. So, this coral color that he's got going on, where it goes kind of pinkish to kind of orangish, that seems to me to be a good match for this. And maybe then the green becomes kind of her skin, and the brown becomes more because he's got some brown down here, the brown and the blue become more like the rest of her. That is kind of what I'm thinking. Because when you find a piece of concept art, it's not going to fit perfectly. It's not. So you're going to have to adapt it one way or the other. Now, if we used the other one instead, but I'm not as much a fan of the other one. Because it's maybe we can use these colors on the back of the mushroom cap, and I think I could do that. But the problem with the inside of the mushroom cap is it's in shadow, just like it is on this guy. So that's why I'm thinking, the areas in shadow, I'm going to do brown, and then I'm going to bring it up to that coral color around the outside. And then maybe on the back, we can bring in these kind of colors, because they're very similar to the coral up here. You know, this pink and orange fade is similar to this. So we could work it off of that. Sorry, there's stuff in the air today. Because I look at the other one, and I think I do want some earthy kind of brown colors on her. But we'll kind of explore it as we go, because, you know, she's got several different parts, and I haven't had time to spend a lot of time with her. So, and thank you, Coobs, for the Prime. Yes, 19 months. Fantastic. So I'm going to leave this kind of open down at my feet. Yeah, at my feet. So that I can kind of just look at it. I don't have a book stand to prop it up. Yeah, I mean, the top, I could go with a realistic mushroom here, except that I really, really, really enjoy that concept art. And it's so rare that a piece of D&D concept art makes me go, yeah, I want to do that. But here, it definitely does. So, and also, Angie, if you remember, it makes sense to have warmer colors on the top part of something, and cooler colors and shadows on the lower part of something. So I think that yellow orange or coral, maybe coral pink around the edges to yellow orange in the middle, makes sense. Makes sense here. And then we can just highlight some of these crackly areas appropriately. The texture here is nice. We could put a pattern on it, but I think usually it's just like, it is kind of does look like a crackle effect on mushrooms to have this. So. And Varl for 20. Yeah, you're not 21 yet. You can't drink on stream. But anyway, so that's the kind of thing I'm thinking about. I don't know about the blue, like if we'll bring in blue. If I do her skin, the greenish color though, his arms do go to blue, and I could fade the skin down to blue at the tendril arms here. Those guys have claws, and she more has tendrils. But we could definitely do a green to blue fade, and that would bring in a little bit of, just a little bit of variation. And then getting down here to the bottom, I'm probably dealing with more browns, is what I'm thinking. So more browns in the stalk things that she's coming out of. And then, of course, we've got like kind of a mushrooms cascade back here, which will probably work back and around. So not too much brown on this figure, probably. Although I probably will fade to brown as she gets down here. I do want some earth colors on here. The danger in going all bright colors, like some of those, is that you kind of don't have anything to anchor your color scheme. Like, neutrals are very good in that they anchor your color scheme. They kind of give somebody somewhere to look that isn't just, like, horrendously bright. And I tend to very much like neutral colors. I use them a lot. I depend on them heavily. Whereas I think maybe painters like David don't. So, and that's something, again, that comes back to your style. What you like to do. But if you do kind of that kaleidoscope mushroom, that's all colors and no neutrals, do be aware that it can just end up a mess, just a hot mess, unless you're very good at balancing your colors. So, oh yeah, sorry about the coughing. Yeah, the ads. Well, tell YouTube that they suck, or I guess this is Twitch. But yes, 30-second ads do suck. I agree. Just looking. All right, cool. Super. So let's figure out what colors I want to use. That coral, all of this, it's worth mentioning also that all of these are muted. Like, they look bright on the picture. There we go. But if you really look at these colors, and if you have a monster manual, I think it's page 230. Yeah, 230 and 231. But if you really look at them, you can see that it's more a muted coral, right? It's not super, super bright. It just looks bright because it's paired with that brown on his body. So, although it does have some vibrant colors coming up, it actually is almost a skin tone, which I'm sure is intentional. So, I'm going to try to figure out what colors to use. And probably, since it kind of almost looks like a skin tone, I'm going to use a combination of a coral color and a skin tone. Hello, Bob and Julie. we are painting our first Christine Van Patten model today. So when I am using or picking a skin tone to go with this, I need to pick something. Again, sorry, there's stuff in the air today, so my throat is going to be like coffee a bit today. You want to choose something that's not gray. You want to choose something that's kind of peachy. So you can use, this is Youthful Flesh, now called Peachy Skin. So that's a good one. I just wrote part of a PDF on this yesterday. Rosy Skin is a great choice. Or if you want to go really pale, Pale Flesh also would work. Bright Shadow, I'm not using canceled colors. Chibi. And Bright Shadow is not light enough unless you add white to it. And this is just highlight. This isn't, I'm not talking about like the actual coral yet, which we're probably going to use a couple of things. Bright Shadow's okay. But like I said, not using canceled colors means that I'm not going to take that one out. So, don't want to use anything for new people who are just coming into the stream. That is not... I may use a not yet released color, though. Do I have it? Yes, I do. So, let's actually talk about Lotus Orange. Prototype! It's coming with your bones for... Lotus Orange and Leaf Bud Green and Orchid Purple are the really, I think, my favoriteest triad that's coming to you with the Bones Kickstarter that will ship whenever we get the stuff. It's an excellent triad. The colors are wonderful. I have all of them actually are in my drawer here, which shows you in what high regard I hold them. Here, let me get them all. So this is the triad, guys, and it is lovely, as you can see. All of you need to buy these. If you did not order this with the Kickstarter, you need to buy these. That's Lotus Orange and Leaf Bud Green and Orchid Purple. Must buy. Must buy. Absolutely must own. Very, very, very utilitarian. So, we'll pop our Lotus right there. I might keep my my Orchid around because I like to use it to shade this, if you can believe it. I think the green is maybe a little bit not olivey enough. So we'll pop that back. Now these are really bright colors, so I'm going to have to mute them to get them to work with the overall color scheme. I think I need a reddish color. There's some definite pinks there. I'm going to use Fire Red, I think. Magma Red was just a little bit too orange. I think I want a truer pink. Jeez, I'm going to have to like go and take a Benadryl if this keeps up. I'll consider it. If my throat keeps itching, it's Benadryl time. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to. Hold that thought, guys. Tell people I'll be right back. I'm going to pop, I'm going to go grab a Benadryl. I'm also going to close the window and start up my fan. Because if the outside world is attacking me... There we go. Alright. Sorry. Huh? Who's asking, Oh, as far as... Yeah, Sphinx. This replaces Sphinxy. We finished Sphinxy. Alright, so that should hopefully kick in. The Benadryl should. And hopefully the world will stop trying to kill me. Hold on. But yeah, we finished Sphinxy. All of her stuff. Yeah, I should not have opened that window this morning. I didn't know I didn't know the outside world was going to attack quite that badly. All right. So we've got a set of corals and reds and purples that we can lighten with one of these skin tones. We'll figure out which one in a second. Then there's a brown for up under that head, right? So we're going to like be doing that. This, I think, is definitely a burnt umber color. Just looking at it, it looks a lot like russet brown to me. So I'm going to use russet brown. And I mean, if you swatch your various Master Series paints, or at least the colors that you use most frequently, you're going to be able to kind of do that, hold those swatches up to this concept art, and kind of figure out which browns and you know, which brown works best, really. So let's see, this green is kind of fading into a shield brown. And shield brown is actually a great highlight color for russet. They work very well together. And then the green, I may want to use like leaf bud plus troll hide. This is a pretty vibrant olive, like this, the shoulder area there on him. That's pretty saturated. Like the shadows might be this, but it's actually a pretty straight up green. Where's my leaf bud? And see, it could be cat's eye too. So this is one reason to make swatches of your paint. If you're ever going to work out of concept art. Yeah, and I think I'm going to have to bring it up with like a bleached linen or a creamy ivory. Yeah, I think bleached linen is where it's at on this one. Also lay out your colors next to each other. When you're like figuring this out, you want to look at them and see if they make a pleasing appearance. Like if anything sticks out that doesn't work, you want to know it now. I'm going to actually look at some things. I think actually Rosy, if I hold my Rosy bottle up to the face of this mushroom man, that's almost the perfect color. So I think I'm going to put away Peachy and Pale Flesh and go with Rosy. I think that's a good start. So we're using our russet to shade. So we're already doing some kind of cool stuff with the head, with the upper under the hood, right? So yeah, you could use sample sticks, or you could use little index cards. You could use I like to sketch on like the little watercolor artist trading cards. You could even cut those in half and get a lot more out of that. But it just depends. But when you have them, then you can hold them up against your stuff, and make a judgment call on what's closest, right? These aren't perfect matches, but they're close. And you are right, AB, that the Bright Skin Shadow, this is very close to it, although I think you'd still have to take it down a notch. All right, so we will use this color scheme, but twist it a bit, pardon me. Dang, yeah, it's allergies day. But the Benadryl appears to be kind of kicking in, so yay! And I think from here, actually, we go up to Driftwood, which is the highlight in the triad for Shield Brown. I think that, plus going up with the bleached linen, is going to give us those browns. So great. So if I put these all together, I'm pretty happy. Like this group of colors, and this is really only a shader, but this group of colors looks pretty good together. Technically, this should be up here. I'm never going to be using full strength Fire Red, and I'm never going to be using the full strength Orchid. These are just to shade that the coral color that we're working with, and to kind of manipulate it to be a little bit more reddish or pinkish at some points. But in general, none of these colors clash with each other. Well, it wouldn't bring up a lot of these colors, though, Grim, because they aren't in there. You wouldn't get this. You wouldn't get that. That's in there. That's in there. I don't know if Trollhide is in there. I don't know if Russet is even in there. So there's I don't know what's in the power palette, what's not, because when we first started it, it wasn't, we didn't have all the line. So there's a lot. I think there's a lot of later colors that may not be in there, but I could be wrong. We could have updated it. Yeah, Benadryl doesn't hit me that way. It never has. Like, antihistamines do not put me to sleep. Which is good, because otherwise, you know, I would be asleep. And, you know, when I get these horrible throat tickles where I'm just coughing all day. Alrighty. But closing the window should have helped. And I think it did. Neural, thank you. 19 months. Awesome. Yeah. On the clear ones, would you prime? Oh, I see. Kritiko's talking about stuff. Okay, about transparent bones. I don't agree with that. I mean, yoga's good for some things, but it's not good for allergies. I mean, I do yoga every day, and I'm still, like, you know, being attacked by the world, so... All right, let's get this going. Now, one thing I will point out, this is a dark gray. Because this is, I think, is it Bones Black or regular Bones? It's got the black card on it. I didn't keep the whole card, I just kept the one section, just because, to have the number. But because this is darker, to get some brighter colors, we are going to need to underpaint a little bit with white. Yeah, so, because otherwise it's just like painting over a dark gray primer. It's going to be very hard to get bright colors to go over this. So I'm going to mix up some colors. And what I'm going to do is I'm not necessarily going to underpaint with white. I'm going to start with maybe a mid-tone. I'm not worried about my russet brown. Russet brown covers really, really well. And it's darker than this, so it'll go fine. But when I mix my coral color out of these two, I'm going to put a drop of bleached linen in it, which is going to shift it maybe a little lighter than I need. But I can always shade down. So I'll be starting with slightly lighter value, instead of going with maybe a darker base coat, but still lighter than this. Yeah, that's why it doesn't hurt to put a drop of white into everything in Aura. Especially when you're dealing with transparent, bright colors that tend to be that way. Woo, boy. I'm gonna pop the door open, I think. I don't know, David's got meetings out there. The world is still attacking me, so we'll keep going and see. If the world attacks me too badly, then I'm just hoping the Benadryl kicks in soon, because usually that fixes it right off. Yeah. Water's not a bad idea. Thanks, Farrell. It's just like allergen tickle. Alrighty, so let's mix up a kind of a coral color. I'm going to use a drop of Fire Red and a couple drops of Lotus Orange, which, like I said, you all should get, you know, within a few months when Reaper fulfills, assuming no catastrophes strike. So I'm going to mix this up and just judge it to see how close it is to what I need. So I'm looking for a very pinky orange. And I'm going to want to put in a drop of skin tone. And Rosy Skin has a lot of white also, so it's going to help with coverage. Crows, these are the Kickstarter prototypes. I decided to use them on this model because they were perfect. So that's Lotus Orange, Leaf Bud Green, and, Orchid Purple. And when I made that Orchid Purple color, I didn't even know how fascinated I was going to get with orchids eventually. But, Orchid Purple, tremendously magic, so... it may have been, Bob and Julie, it may have been Sadie mixing up batches of the Kickstarter colors, and one just went a little bit too south. So your sample may have been a Kickstarter oops. Ooh, I like that. That's a definite coral. It looks pink on screen. Let's see if I can get it to color adjust. Let's see if I can get it to look as orange as it really is. Yeah, there we go. That makes it look a little bit. So this is good. This is actually, it's a brighter version of the color on the Mushroom Man guy. And you guys, anybody who's got a monster manual for this edition, 5th edition? Yeah, 5th Ed Monster Manual is welcome to go to page 230 and look at the colors I'm talking about. So this is a very bright version of that color. But remember, it's going to be getting muted because we're going to be highlighting it with a skin tone. And I am actually going to do some of this. And now that I know kind of what I'm going to do, I'm going to try mixing an intermediate tone. So again, 1 drop. I did 4 drops of the brown. I'll do 1 drop of the red. I'll do 2 drops of the orange and 1 drop of the rosy skin. So essentially I'll mix this color, but then add 4 drops of the brown. Because when you're going from one color to another and they're very different, doing an intermediate mix is recommended. So you've got kind of a bridging color in between there. And since we don't want this to be too bright, putting it over an intermediate mix, like base coating with kind of our like first shadow, is not a bad idea. Yeah, maybe. Not sure what's been canceled or what's not been canceled at this point. Morning After Blues was one of those promo colors. And if it was the HD one, then I'm pretty sure it was canceled, but... Oh, man. World. Okay, my throat is getting better, though, so that's good. Yay, Benadryl. Save me, Benadryl. You are my only hope. So this is going to give us a lighter version. And since that, you can see how strong that russet brown is. Like, it overwhelms very much the other colors. In fact, this is probably our shadow color. Yeah, I could go a little darker. But that's really close. That's a good transition. Yeah, this is going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. So, based on this, if I did another mix, I would probably only use a single drop of russet, and then I'd mix this color. And I'd get some nice transition colors. Maybe I'll do that. Although I'm kind of liking this brown. And really, when I look at him, most of his face is kind of emerging from a brownish undertone. So maybe I'll do that. I don't know. Part of me wants another color, though. I should always listen to my gut on color, right, guys? Because it works. So when you're messing around, you're just trying to find a good base. I still feel like that base is a little dark. So we're going to once again make another pool of this, but now we're going to add just 1 drop of russet. Good morning, Pendrake. You gotta remember, though, that, you know, there are all sorts of gray blues in the world, and it might be close to Morning After Blues, but it might just be a gray blue that didn't work when we were mixing a different gray blue, so... Like, when you've got 500 colors in a line, there are plenty of colors that are similar to another color that may have been canceled, and maybe that was why it was canceled, you know? Stuff like that, so just remember that. 1 drop of water, drop of water... Alright, let's see how 1 drop does. Alright, yeah, ooh, that's cool. So that's a transition color. I like that. Interesting. So we've got kind of a triad here. A weird, muted, coral, funky triad. And it's not even our full triad, because we still need to highlight this coral color. So we're going to have to make some highlights. Alright, let's see here. So if I'm looking at her... Unfortunately, I have a window on the other side, so there we go. If I have to block the light. You can see that a lot of her is in shadow. Like, this whole area is really in shadow. And you get some light when you get to the edges. And then down here, where these are kind of puffing in. So you're getting more light down there. You have a bit of a shadow with her arm, but it more or less corresponds to this this point where it kind of scoops in. So that means that I want my heavy brown around her face, and then I want more of the coral coming out toward the edges. So I'm going to actually put this in and see how it goes. I'm using my big fat brush that I normally use for wet blending. It's a good big base coat brush. It's a little better than the flat. Like, you could do a flat on this, but I think this is a little better just because this is not a smooth surface. So this is a lot like Bright Skin Shadow, only it's darker and browner. So if you did use Bright Skin Shadow, I would put a tiny bit of russet brown in it. And this is very muted. One thing we can do is we can do some wet blending. We'll see if this actually covers. Well, this is still going to be a shadow. Yeah, see, this is very see-through. That was my fear with this. So what I'll do is I'll mix up some bleached linen so I can just kind of highlight wet blend with a color that covers well. A light color, a near white color. Could also use pure white. That's the problem with really bright colors, is they tend not to cover as well. So you have to kind of compensate. Wow. One second, I am going to pop, open the door. Make sure that my window is fully closed. Hopefully this will help. Sorry, guys. No, I've been doing water. The problem in R is that it's inflammation. It's not grit. Like, taking a drink of water, like, just soothes my throat because the muscles are working, but it's actually... I just have to wait for the Benadryl to really kick in. And popping, if I had, like, bad area in here, then hopefully opening the door will help. David will probably close it again in a little bit, but hopefully it'll be enough. So this is a cool color. The color I get when I'm wet blending. Again, it's muted. It's not really, really bright. But that doesn't mean you can't take it brighter. Remember that shadows are almost always muted. They're almost always... You can do saturated shadows, and a lot of painters really like them, like Banshee and Michael Proctor. There are other people who really enjoy saturated shadows. At times I like them. It depends on the model. But if you're doing something more realistic, shadows do tend to be muted. So we're doing something more natural. But I like that kind of blushy color, so... Art Ninja, I am using as a reference the Monster Manual 5th edition concept art as color inspiration because I really liked it. So I'm not able, because this the Fungal Queen is not the same sculpt or structure exactly as the others in the book in the concept art. I can't necessarily duplicate like every area as far as being the color of the concept art, but I can use these colors and work them around the actual sculpt that I have. So even though the monster that I'm basing this off of has this color all over his face, for her it makes more sense to do the cap. So, and I'm just doing a bit of wet blending. I'm not going to try to make it perfect. Like I said previously, with the Hydra, wet blending is never perfect. You always go back and reset it, tweak it. I'm going to get a little closer. Now that I've got my colors mixed so you guys can see what I'm working with. This is really big, so I might actually need to mix more of that color. So you can see, there's plenty of, places where there's not a great blend. I could take a damp brush and kind of blend that in a little bit more. But the other thing that I'll do is just layer. So... yeah, trouble when I get this throat thing, Benadryl's the only thing. I have to take it and, just wait. There's just something in the air in the late spring and early summer here that makes my windpipe just want to close up. So it's, really irritates my throat. And I've never had this reaction, even though I'm allergic to pretty much the entirety of the state of Wisconsin. I haven't had quite this reaction before, so I wonder what plant it is that I'm... Plant or mold. I seem to have a big reaction to molds, so... Though I've never really been tested for any of that. So I'm just taking my bleached linen and just like blending it in here. I haven't really mixed this lighter pink color. I'm just using this, and just mixing it right in with my off-white. And I just decided to choose bleached linen because I mentioned earlier that this model, although the color scheme looks bright, it's not really. It's actually quite muted. It's kind of a tricksy color scheme. So if I'm trying to add white for a muted color scheme, I will often use an off-white. And when you're wet blending, if you know, I tend to put the white down and pull out, but you can also do the other side. You can also like grab your dark and pull back toward the shadow and make a decent blend that way. And what the wet blend is meant to do here really is just set me up quickly with a general appearance so that then I can spend time going in to refine. Maybe it was tree trimming. Maybe the trees are attacking me. But now my nose is going too. So definitely allergies. Oh my lord. Like I feel fine other than that. Yeah, maybe it's the fungus. Maybe I shouldn't have painted this fungus when I'm like, you know, have allergic reactions to fungus sometimes. Although a fungus isn't the same as a mold. It's a little bit different, I guess. But similar. Yeah, maybe this... If I always have an allergic reaction when I'm painting this model, this is going to be a pretty fast paint, guys. Like, who knew Christine Van Patten had such sculptor power that she could imbue her sculpt with the actual attributes of the creature? Like, that scares me. It's a decent model to practice wet blending on. It's very large. I think that big flat surfaces like dragon wings, or things that don't have quite as much like deep crevices, can be a little easier. Although when you've got a model with a lot of texture and you're doing wet blending on it, the texture does tend to disguise any faults that you have. So there is that. Now I'm going to grab my brown. I'm actually going to darken. A lot of my paint is kind of pooling down here at the bottom, so I probably need to let it dry before I load a ton in. And I am going to need to get more dark down here also. Kind of layering in some brown, which is interesting because it's making this area very light, very warm. So I'll probably actually stop for a bit because I don't want to necessarily make a very warm shadow. It's interesting. Although I guess that mushroom guy does have a pretty warm shadow. If I look at it. He has a pretty warm shadow on his, with that brown under his cap. So let's get the rest of this. I'm going to actually mix up a little bit more of my, my base coat here, which is this coral color. And I am going to intensify that coral color in places too as we go on. Which is why I'm keeping it separate. I'll probably have to add a little white to it and glaze. But I do want some more vibrant tones. And the coral, again, is 2 drops of the new Lotus Orange, 1 drop of Fire Red, a red that I'm using a lot lately, and 1 drop of Rosy Skin. A color that we put together based on the colors that we can see in the picture. I maybe like that a little bit better. Let's try. That's even more bright. See now, if I don't add the brown, I get a much more vibrant color. So I'm going to remember that for when I want to kind of intensify this. Like, actually, if I take a little bit of this color and glaze it, I bet we get a very pretty effect up here. Let me get some, I'm just, at this point, we're just messing around. Like, I'm like, okay, I think I want this color scheme. So let's mess around with it and see what we like. Oh, hey, I've got a rainbow sculptor. Did somebody summon you, Christine? I was thinking about emailing you this morning, but it was like right before stream, and I'm like, too late. I don't have time to tell you that for the first time ever, we are working on one of your minis. So she'll be every 6 days, Christine. So yeah, you went really realistic. Yeah, and that's what I'm like, I'm painting here. We're using the D&D Monster Manual, Christine. We're doing like, if you go to page 230, if you have it, but it's like the upper part is this. I'm going to go probably with the green on her face, and do the hood in this color, and then the back of the hood in the other little mushroom guys, like more like this orange coral to yellow. There's some blue accents in there too. If you've got the 5e Monster Manual, look at page 230 and 231 and you'll find that concept art. I really love that concept art, so I was like, definitely want to. Yeah, well, your spores almost killed me. I was like having a coughing attack early in the stream. So I mixed a glaze here, guys. I used this color here that I made that I hadn't added the brown into it yet to get this base color. And I added just a touch of this bright stuff. So we want it pretty thin, but I want to glaze it over the top of this and see how it intensifies things. So if we bring this over the top in a really thin layer, we're going to just pull it all out so we don't have any pooling. Remember, with glazes, you never want to pool. The other effect this is going to have is going to blend everything together. So all that messy wet blending that we had, that we were kind of leaving like artifacts and brush strokes, helps to even it out. So I'm going to see if I like this. And I'm going to quick rinse out my brush and pull the excess off of this. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, boom. So anywhere you see it pooling, pull it off or it will dry weird. Because it's a glaze. Sorry, I was having an allergy attack. David just closed the door. He probably has his earphones on, so he can't, There we go. Hopefully my allergy attack is over. So what that did is see how that makes it more vibrant. See how we get a more vibrant pink here now? Instead of more like this. So we'll have to figure out which one we like. I'm going to just keep going. And we have all the time in the world to tune this. Like, when you are painting with any acrylic hobby paint, especially if you're like me and you use thin layers, because if you use thin layers, you could put so much paint on this and never cover up detail. So even my base coats tend to be thinner for that reason. But we can tune this any way we want. Like, with glazing and with layering and all the rest, we have so much room to push this lighter or darker or brighter or muted, or, you know, to up the contrast and to bring out detail and to add detail. You know, don't ever think you're stuck just because you've started something. If I decided in the next 15 minutes that I hated this, I could turn it completely around easily, not lose any detail. Only the time would be lost, and that's not a big deal if I ended up with a color scheme I really liked. So yeah. So the concept art that I'm using is pretty colorful, which I did want to do. So what we're probably going to do, guys, is I'm going to mock in the rest of her underhood here. Then we're going to go up to her face and we're going to try to figure out the skin colors. Like, this is a model that is complex enough that I feel I do need to kind of block in my base coat colors and just to see if the color scheme is going to work. Because I want to make sure, since it's a pretty complicated scheme, it has a lot of different moving parts. I want to make sure that I like it, and that since this model is a little different than the fungus guy that we're basing it on, I want to make sure that I can get the colors in good places and that they look good in those places. And that it all works. So that's where the wet blend actually comes in really nice, because it does let us put in some of these highlights to get an idea of our actual values. And I'm just going to block in. I'm going to go back in even with some darker color. I'm going to go down to burnt umber, which is russet brown. But we're going to wait till that dries before we go and really hit that. Yeah, it was nice to have you on the stream, Christine. I missed you. How have you been? Bringing up a little bit of wet blend at the edge here because the light falls on this particular area. Now, another thing we could think about doing, guys, is we could think about shifting the color, like as it goes around her cap. That's actually an interesting idea, and I may do that. I may decide to go maybe more pink on top, more orange on the bottom. There's so much... The nice thing about painting a totally fictional and based on colorful things model like this is that you have so many options for color, and nobody can call you on it. Nobody can tell you it's not a realistic color scheme, because it's a fungus person, and mushrooms are all sorts of colors. So you can shift and play. This is a great model to just play with. I really feel like just like open yourself up and just mush colors together and see what you get and play around. Well, then you have to figure out, like, I have to figure out if I'm going to maybe go with the blue on this stuff, or the brown on this stuff where it's going down. Brown might be the answer. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do with her hair. Although the hair might go kind of a white, kind of a ghostly greenish white, or maybe a bluish white, because I want to attract attention there. And since I'm planning to shade all around the head, you can see how deep the shadows are around the head. I haven't even painted those in yet. But once I put that dark brown back there, going with a paler hair color is going to make her face like pop a lot better. So yeah, for sure. Like you could go crazy and just do whatever. Like this is a great model to exercise your creativity on. And like I said, this is just your base coat. Like, you can tweak and change it, make it go lighter and darker with glazing. There's so much great area to work with here. Another thing I tried, actually I tend not to do, is I tend not to look at what other people have done on a model before I get my idea. I don't want to end up just duplicating something from everybody else. Like if I see a really, really well done paint job on a mini, I actually lose the urge to paint it. Because I'm like, oh, well, they did a really good job on it. I don't have to paint that. So I will actually not look at other painters' versions. I'm far more interested in looking at like 2D artists' renderings when it comes to these mythological creatures, or looking at actual mushrooms. But I had seen that art and I had fallen in love with it, so I'm like, yeah, I want to do that, or something like that. And again, this one is kind of poofing out toward the bottom, so it's going to catch a little light, so I can bring up my highlights a little bit more here. Yeah, anything big like this, Rax, is going to react. Like, larger... Okay, so when you're using color shift paints, the larger the area, the better it's going to look. It's why they look so good on vehicles. Because you're usually dealing with a big, like, jet bike or something, with large flat areas that allow you to build it up with different angles that really show off the color shift. Small areas are not great areas for color shift paint. Usually you lose a lot of the effect. It's like on 28mm models, I did a video where I showed it on a skirt, how you could use it. So it was a big floofy skirt. So again, we're taking in and bringing in some of that brown here. Just a little bit. Do a little bit on the other side too. Bring in a little more earthiness to it. This is actually not a straight russet brown, but a mixture of russet and coral, just like my base color is. It's just a little bit more brown. That's cool that you've wanted to do one of these for so long. I think artists and writers and creative people in general, we all have those projects where it's something we've wanted to do for so long, and it feels awesome to finally do it. I know that there's like stories, as a writer, there's stories that I've wanted to write since I was a kid. All right, so we've got that kind of blocked in. I can go back now and shade, use my brown, and then go in with an even darker brown to bring in contrast up here. But that was a really fast block in on the hood. She looks like a flower. I really like that. Yeah, box art, if it's not great, like if I don't like it, especially Dogfather, even if it's good box art, but I don't like, I'm like, ooh, but I have a better idea than that, or I'm like, well, that's not quite what I had in mind. That totally gets me to paint it. Yeah, that's true, Art Ninja. Like I did that for the half orc, right? For the half orc wizard, where we were like, what are those things? Because sometimes if it's really fine detail, even in the metal model, which is what I was working on, like you can still wonder what the details are. Like your eyes just get confused a little bit. Even though I zenith primed it, it still was, the detail was fine enough that it wasn't picking up necessarily. So I'm just bringing in some of this brown now around the center. I do think she looks like a flower. I really think it's pretty. I like it. Yay. So this will totally not be the last Christine Van Patten that we paint, because, you know, those kid adventurers are coming. And numerous other things. So I am certain, I'm trying to maybe expand on the different sculptors that I use. Like, I think we've done a fair number lately. I mean, we do a lot of Julie, but we've also got, like, I think a Jean, we've got Bobby, and now we've got Christine. So I'm trying to, like, make sure that we get a lot of different sculptors represented on this show. Kind of have to, you know, do that, balance that with, you know, getting a nice variety of models, but I'm glad you like it too, Art Ninja. I don't know. It's a color that otherwise I might not have reached for on this, but I think it's a little more saturated on the camera than it is in person, but it really does look like a flower, like almost a faded rose color. I love it. For a girl mushroom, this is perfect. Like, if this was a guy mushroom, like we were basing it on, then I probably would have maybe gone slightly different. Maybe it would have gone blue up top or green. But I think this is working. So, all right. So now we have to look at our green. I think I'm still thinking pale for the hair, which fits for mushrooms, right? But I have to figure out what I'm going to base that pale hair on. Like, am I going to do driftwood? Am I going to make it a little greenish? Maybe? That's a good question. So now we get to play again. This is all about playing. Like, this is all about playing with color. So I used russet brown to shade this, and actually I need to take it a little darker still. But a color that works really well with russet, and actually, first it's shield. So this is a really good triad. If you like shield brown and driftwood, and you are not, like, Woodstain is made to be a good wash for these colors, but some people don't like it as much painted on. But I find this is my favorite triad. It's a little more saturated. The Woodstain is more of a muted, kind of a dark, kind of rotting wood or aged wood color, as far as, like, getting in the cracks and everything and crevices. So buildup of soiling and stuff on wood would be Woodstain. But russet is a little bit more vibrant, and I think this is a great triad. I use it a lot. It's a queen, so I'm going to say it's a girl. I am assuming the gender of the fungi based upon the information given me by the sculptor and the company. Alright, I am going to get a little bit. I'm using driftwood. Anyway, the point behind all this is since I'm using russet up here, and since driftwood is a good color with russet, and it, you know, can be used to highlight russet, then working the hair from a base of driftwood with another color added, and then, you know, making it more pale is a good call. Since her skin's going to be green up at the top, I am actually doing kind of I added a little bit of troll hide. I'm going to see what this looks like. I'm going to add a drop of bleached linen too. Now, these are complementaries, guys, if you think about it, right? Because we've got... There. Because we've got definitely a pinkish color with definitely a greenish color. And both of them are muted. So they're probably going to work really well. Fingers crossed. Now, this is just the shadow to the hair. So I need to, like, figure out... I want it a little lighter, I think. And maybe a little greener. Oh, good. I'm glad that the set is nice. That the casting is nice. Are they bones black or are they regular bones, Inara? Do you know? Yeah, this is a little bit taupey. I think I want to go a little more green. Oh. Yeah, Thormel, I'm basing it on the fact that it is a queen. The sculptor has named it a queen, and the company has named it a queen, therefore it is female. Or it is an equivalent gender to female-ish. Gray plastic. Maybe Bones USA. Yeah, I want it just a little more green. Little more green. Give me more green. There. Big drop of green. Let's see how that works. That's closer. I wanted it to have a definitive undertone of green. Now I'm going to transfer some of this over and I'm going to add more bleached linen. Again, the reason I'm using an off-white here is because these colors are muted, so sometimes I will use an off-white if I'm working with muted colors. You could use a pure white, that's fine. But bleached linen has a good strength of pigment, and it's probably the off-white that's most comparable. There we go. That's what I wanted. That's kind of like a Medusa green from Pathfinder, and I could have just reached for that, I suppose, but... I'm trying to do a lot of intermixing and limiting my palette. So this, I could guess, you could almost call any model I do limited palette. I tend not to reach for a huge variety of colors. I try to find a base of colors that are versatile and then mix them all to find what I need. Think it's Bones Black? If it's got good detail, that would fit, right? So I'm going to switch to a smaller brush to base coat the hair because it is finer in detail. And I'm also going to... I need to add some water to some of these guys to keep them... wet, and I also need to mix up some actual russet brown, like full strength, to really add some dark shadows underneath her hood. And then I'm going to go probably more green, more straight up green, less muted green on her skin, but I'm going to make it quite pale, so we'll see, Maybe not. If I go pale with the hair, I can't go pale with the skin. Now I have to stop and think. Oh no, guys. Oh no, we may have to back out. Pale skin makes sense for a fungus. But then I have to think about what I want to do with the hair. Oh, that makes sense, Inara. Like, so now is our first big, like, contrast thing, right, guys? All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to darken that area behind her head, and we're going to think about making our call after that. Could go with a blue. For the hair. But do you see my quandary here? If I go pale with the hair, going pale with the skin wouldn't be great contrast. So I'm going to look at my color. I'm going to darken in my shadow. Okay, Pendrake? Never, ever, ever, ever. Okay, so, unless you're doing an analogous color scheme, dark red would look so ugly here. Because the red and the pink would fight like crazy. Like, You'd have to go almost black with your red to get it to work together. But think about how close these are on the color wheel, right? Remember how, like, if you went dark red with this red-orange coral color, they're right next to each other. So they're going to fight like blazes unless you make one really light and the other really dark. But this is a medium tone around her. Like we have darks here and we have lights here, but in general, it's a medium tone. Like way up on the edge. I'll probably creep it up around the corner when we do it. But do you see what I mean? Like, if you can, always go contrast, especially with a model that has as many colors in it as this. There's no reason to put a red against a coral pink unless you have to. But to me, that's just like, I think of that color combo and I'm just like, yuck. Like, if the cap was really pale, we could do it. But again, I've got like blues and greens and purples. I've got so many different colors I can do here that analogous color scheme doesn't make sense to me. Because you want to use, whatever you use here, you want to draw attention to her face. And draw attention to this part of her, right? Because, well, kind of, it's kind of both, Zen Bacon. I mean, her hair definitely has a different texture. It's sprouting out of her head. So it's part of her head. It's not a hat. It's part of her, but it's different texture than the hair. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, but then I had like a... but why would you... Okay, so Arcane, think about that. Why do you want to tie... Like, I guess you could tie it to that cap if you really wanted to. If you wanted to imply that this was all the same material. But I don't, as me as an artist, I'm like, I want contrast in there. Because it's not all the same material, because it's sculpted differently. So then if you make it all the same material, you're losing an opportunity to use some more contrast, essentially, is the way that I think of it. I always tell you guys, always alternate, like mid-dark light, you know, or mid-light dark. You always want to alternate on a figure as much as you can. To me, it looks like a different texture. These are strands, and this is definitely like a, you know, big poofy mushroom cap. You could paint it however you like, but there is definitely a rim here, it seems. And actually, I should probably paint that pink. You guys can paint it all you like, but I definitely see it as two different things. One second. So Ian's thought process on it is like, this little thing here looks to be a different kind of texture also. And that's what the cap is sprouting out of. But then just under that is hair. So you could treat it however you like. The best I can do is tell you guys, like, when I react to a suggestion, I'm not trying to diss your suggestion. I'm trying to, like, kind of give you how my gut feels about what you're suggesting. Like, I would never go analogous with the hair and the cap. Maybe it's just me, but I don't want this all to blend in. I want it to stand out as different parts. But you can do it that way, and you might make it work. This is the kind of decision that defines you as a painter. Like, the decisions that you make, whether you like analogous color schemes. Like, you all know I don't. So you shouldn't be surprised if you suggest, like, using a coral and a red together. I'm going to go, what? You crazy. Because I want to do something different. But now I'm like, do I really want to? I need to go back to my color scheme, or to my, look at my concept art. All right, so pink, 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 green, 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 pale, pale, pale. This is difficult. Now, the other thing we could do... Alright. I was going to dive in. I'm going to dive in. I'm actually going to go green and see how it looks. But I'm going to use this. This is just much darker than it's going to be. I'll warn you guys that. Warn you guys of that right off the bat. And part of me wants to do the hair really dark. Part of me is like saying, stop. You should do the hair dark and do the skin green and pale. Man, this is hard. So this is why fantasy critters are hard, because you've got so much. Well, but it is kind of. I mean, it's part of her. The way you get around that, Pendrake, is you add the pink in other places on the model. On her skin, for example. Pardon me, I got a mold line, guys. I'm going to take that off real quick. The way you get around making something look like it's a piece of clothing when you really want it to be part of the model is you then put that same color, that same rosy pink, somewhere else on the mini. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, HM Road Dog, originally, was white with a green tinge. But you always start it darker with miniatures. You always start it a little darker than you intend. I'm going to go for it. I kind of felt like I was going this way. I'm going to go for it. And sometimes, honestly, guys, what I would do if I wasn't on stream with you is I would set this model aside and I would come back to it. I would let it kind of like percolate in my head and give it like probably sleep on it. And my brain would work on the problem and it would come up with a solution. Like I do that a lot. Ron really likes Mushroom Men. I also want to say that. Like, Ron has always been a fan of the Mushroom Men. I remember him really liking our original Mushroom Men. So I'm just going to block that in as kind of a pale green. Yeah, that's what I was talking about at the very start of the stream, Arcane. The only thing now is to keep your, keep yourself from investing too much work in a color scheme that you're going to dislike. Because you can always paint over everything. Now, the problem with this model being pre-put together is that it's a little hard to hit some of these areas underneath here. So I'm going to grab my brush that I don't care about again and grab some of this green and put it way up under here. I don't care if I kind of crush the tip of my brush against the underside of the cap that way. Kind of going, sorry you guys can't really see this because it's way up under there, but I'm pretty much just swishing my green color way up there. Trying to get all the parts. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. My big problem right now, Derek, is face versus hair. Like, I was thinking I wanted the hair quite light because I'm bringing in some russet brown to darken all this area. And because there's a pretty dark shadow cast by the area in general. So I normally would go light with the hair because you go from dark to light. Because I have that same transition you're talking about, right? I've got this pale edge going to the mid-tone and then to the dark. But this is something I think everybody has to just kind of ruminate on for themselves. Like when you're painting the model, you've got to kind of figure out, what works for you, what sounds good to you. And sometimes other people's suggestions will help you, and sometimes they just won't. Like, because they're other people's suggestions. They're not what your interpretation is, right? So don't feel bad if people are giving you tons of suggestions and you're just like, none of that really works for me. Like, you're not ungrateful. It's just like, sometimes you've got to figure it out for yourself with the image that you've got in your head of the model. Yeah. It's a composition quandary for sure, Derek. We'll see. I'll try going darker with the skin. And then I might have to go light with the tendrils, which would be very fungoid. And that might work. We'll see. We'll try it that way. If I don't like it, I'll repaint it. Sometimes, but I mean, some people really do not react well to feedback. So keep that in mind, guys. Like, if somebody is like, really kind of feels like they're kind of shutting you down, or they're shutting down when you're trying to give them help, don't keep peppering them. Like, sometimes it's just overwhelming them. I've run into this because I'm the kind of person who like tends to bubble over with, you know, like helpful. And sometimes, you know, people just, that's just crushing, like that it just doesn't help. And they really just need some time and space to think about it. So when you're giving help, do be aware of that. Like if the person is kind of sending you vibes that they're like, no, just back off. I need to figure it out. Like, you know, just, you know, back off a little bit and give them some time. And chances are, just like you say, something you said is going to play in their head. And then they might go later, they might come back to you and say, hey, yeah, thanks, that really worked. But at the time, I just couldn't process, you know. I mean, so many of us are introverts. So I just wanted to mention that because I've run into that before. Where is my blackened brown? There we are. I decided I want to go even a little darker on this. Yes. Yeah, it is Art Ninja, right. And when you're very used to, when your job requires you to take feedback and you have to get used to it, it's very different than if you're somebody who, this is your hobby, like your private hobby. And most of the time you really enjoy just, you know, exercising your own creativity. Then a lot of feedback can just feel bad to you. It can really just kind of make it not fun anymore. I hate to say that, but I've actually experienced that. And I've also been the cause of that. So that's why I bring this up. Because part of the fun is figuring it out on your own sometimes. The suggestions here on stream are useful because it lets me, if somebody makes a suggestion and I can see a clear way, compositional way, reason why it might not work, like with the red hair and the mushroom cap, then I like that when you guys say that stuff, because that gives me a chance to explain, you know, color compositionally wise, this is why that's fraught with peril. You know, the red is really close to the coral and they're going to fight unless you take the red really like black red, you know, at which point though, you could be going with a different color also to make more contrast. So when it comes down to it, you can make it work. You can make anything work if you can introduce enough contrast. But some things are going to be a lot harder to make look good, and they're going to very easily clash. When colors are really close to each other on the color wheel, it's really easy to end up with clashing colors. Colors that make people cringe. Right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, so just be conscious of that. I know a lot of you are super helpful. You're always super helpful on the Discord, and we love that. And most people, when they come to the Discord, they're going to be looking for that. But some people aren't, you know, so just be conscious. It's not a big deal. It's just something I like to bring up, especially because we're coming up to ReaperCon. So then you're going to be able to kind of read a person's reactions in person, which can be a little bit easier. You know, online, it's really hard to understand whether somebody is just kind of busy or if they're really kind of trying to say, I don't need a lot of suggestions right now, or these aren't working for me. So I'm going to bring in a little bit of a darker shadow here. Chartreuse works fine. Dungeon Slime is Chartreuse. Dungeon Slime and Icy Violet, man. All the way. Even Dungeon Slime in like Void Blue or Ritter-like Blue works great. Like, I could come up with a crap ton of color schemes integrating Dungeon Slime because I love Dungeon Slime. But my favorite is probably Dungeon Slime and Icy Violet. Ha! Vithiel, have you ever gotten the feedback, is it done? Yeah, absolutely. More often, though, what I get is people giving me feedback when it's not done, and they're treating it like it's done. Like, which is irritating, right? You're just like, grr, I'm still working on that. And I usually make a point, you know, of going, I'm still working on this. I'm somebody who really believes that, like, you shouldn't offer your model up for feedback until you've got it to the point where you cannot see the failings anymore. Like, I think feedback is most valuable when you've done the best you can and you're like, okay, I can't see anything wrong with this, but it doesn't feel done. Then bring it to somebody whose opinion you trust, who's good with color, who's good with composition, who's good with whatever you think you're doubting, and then ask for feedback, because they'll say something and it'll flip your brain on its top, and your brain will go, oh, now I see where I can improve this. Chartreuse is better as a highlight color in a lot of cases because it is so light. But you can do it. There's plenty of things you can do it with. All right, so I've got that nice brown shadow that I wanted there now, and that's dark. I'm going to use a little bit of this black and brown to line. Put a line shadow between her little cap. I mean, it is a mushroom cap, right? So she looks like she's got a very stylish hat, and I'm okay with that. Oh, good, Valender. I mean, yay. I guess. I mean, sad that things fail, but they do on occasion. Alright, so I'm okay with this green color. I wonder if I can put this over the entirety. I'm going to try something, guys. It's going to seem like madness. Oh, but I've gone too thin. Too thin with my paint. This is sad. Hold on. I'm going to try to remix this color. My paint has gone too thin. I've decided to just go whole hog onto this green and do a ton of the model, like base coat the model with it, all of it, and then step back and figure out what I need. Oh. Yeah, I don't know enough about 3D printing to understand the trials and tribulations of the 3D printer. All right, I'm going to add a little bit more white. Maybe I want to start here. Maybe I want to start there. So what I'm doing is I'm mixing a couple different greens that are very similar to what I've got. I had the idea, actually, since you pointed out, actually, one thing you guys pointed out was really useful here. So the thing that drove this decision, where I'm going to paint the skin and the hair, I'm going to paint everything the same color, actually, headed down. And then I'm going to paint over it and figure it out. But what drove that decision was you actually pointing out that, you know, like the cap might be part of her hair. And although I like to think that it's a little separate, I mean, it's growing out of her, but it looks like a hat. But what did make me think about is that the hair is the same as the skin, is the same as everything, right? This is all just fungus. So what I can do is I can choose a middle color, paint everything like here in that color, and then I can take the hair lighter from that point, and I can take the skin darker from that point, and see if I like it. See if it's there. Yeah, we've gone a little far, haven't we? Oh well, too late to stretch. That's okay, I did extra exercises this morning, because I felt like I needed them. Yeah, this has been a fun one. This stream was really engrossing. Well, and I also got a lot of disruption in the beginning where the allergies were attacking me. California was attacking me. The only place I haven't ever had allergies when I moved there was the East Coast, when I lived out in north of Baltimore. Like, there was a glorious period of like 6 or 7 months there where I didn't have to take my allergy pill. And that was insane because I've been taking my allergy pill every day since I was 10. So I'm just going to block all this in, guys. We're going to block it all in green. But I'm already getting ideas. Like, remember what I said about making it look like if you introduce some of this pink down here, you can make it look more like it's all one thing? Well, one place I can introduce this pink and totally be within rights is to introduce it as a blush color on her face. Kind of like we did with the half-orc, right? So I'm going to just base coat this entire green fungus. And then we're going to work with it. At least the top part. No, I think I'm going to do all of it. I think I do like how these colors go together. Yes, have a good lunch, Shadow Raven. Benadryl's fine. Like, Benadryl does not affect me, guys. Like, the only way it affects me is to, like, help me not die when the state attacks me. Or when shrimp attacks. I do react to shrimp every once in a while. So I'm going to start with this, and then I'm going to modify it heavily as we go forward. But this would be like the equivalent to like airbrushing a model all in one color, and then just slowly changing parts of it. But as you know, a lot of the model's going to be greenish. It saves you a little time down the road. So I'm just going to get this all up in there. Then we're going to play around with it. I always call that green horse syndrome because there was a time I was painting my wood elves that I was painting all my horses with a base coat of green. And everybody was like, what on earth are you doing? And nobody got it, and it looked terrible. But the point was that I wanted that green tone to be underneath all of the colors because they were wood elf horses. So once I actually got them finished, they looked fine. But for a while, you will go through points of your model where you have green horse syndrome. Where you look at it and you're like, I don't get where this is going. I don't know what I'm doing with it. Evan, the secret here is that I'm actually loading some white into these colors. When you load white into colors, it makes them cover better. This is probably about a 4-to-1 base coat. This is about what I typically work with. It's not going to cover perfectly, but it's going to cover decently, and then I can just do some touch-ups. I'm going to get all of this. And the more I think about it, the more I'm like, I think I'm going to start pale with your skin further up, and then I'm going to take it darker further down, maybe? That's kind of an interesting idea. I think I'm going to explore that. And then I still haven't decided, like, what colors to make all of her fungus skirts. So that'll be fun. So, alright, this is at least a starting point. There comes a point when you are not sure on color where you should just dive ahead. And what this is going to do for me is that every time I walk into my office, my craptastic brush, because I'm just, like, throwing it at the model, Angie. I have a crappy Escoda. It's a Kolinsky sable, but it's not a really high-grade red sable. Like, it's not a number one. It never got it. It never held a great tip, and now it has no tip at all. But what it's great for is base coating big models. If it's more of a dragon size, I use a flat. I use a really big flat brush if it doesn't have much texture. But here we had a lot of texture, so I'm using my crappy Escoda. This is equivalent to like just a normal, like if you got a number one, maybe red sable brush, that would be the good equivalent. I like to use a softer brush for base coating on bones though, because the stiffer a bristle you use, the more you're going to kind of scrape the paint over the surface. And the softer the bristle is, the more it's just gently going to apply the paint. It's not going to scrape the paint. When you've got a brush that's really stiff and you're pulling the paint really tight over the surface, a stiff brush is going to create brush marks. A soft brush is going to hide brush marks. So if you are noticing that you definitely have like kind of, not a real smooth base coat, question what brush you're using and maybe switch to a softer sable. Yep, Varl, I did a whole video on that, like painting lighter and then doing a glaze or a heavy wash. And I guess this is a good time to plug the video source, which is my Patreon. Patreon.com/paintingbig. I has it. I loves it. I'm almost caught up with it. Because we had technical difficulties this month. But yeah, so go check it out. I have some free stuff, some fun stuff. Some useful stuff, hopefully. I have a PDF on there that goes with a free video on the Reaper YouTube called Thinning MSP Paints, which I think is maybe one of the most useful videos I have ever done. And yeah, there we go. Boop, boop, boop. A little bit darker. A little bit darker and greener and more saturated. It looks better, actually, a little paler. So I may go pale up here. The more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm thinking about the blues that on this mushroom man and how I might do the hair like a blue. So this is going to... Thanks for the link there, Quindy. Yeah, I really like the rose color. And the green goes well with the rose when it's like a little bit lighter. And a little doesn't go as well with it when it gets a little more saturated. But we've also got a lot of browns to introduce to this. To stick with our color scheme. And a bit of blue. So I'm still working. I'm still working on it. This is going to be a challenging model because it's got... It's all fungus, right? And yet it's got to be different kinds of fungus, different colors of fungus, different surfaces and materials of fungus. You want to highlight it differently. You know, you've got to bring out the differences. Yeah, Evan, it's an oil painter's trick. When you want oil paints are all transparent. So when you want them to cover, you add white, and then you glaze the deeper color over the top once it's dry. So you can use the same things with acrylic paints. If you have an acrylic paint that's not covering as well when it's thin, add some white to it. Usually pure white, but bleached linen has a pretty high white pigment load, so it works. And then once it's dry, like if I wanted this to be a really vibrant olive, but that it wasn't covering, this is a great color to start with because I added white to it, and then I could go over it with the deeper olive that maybe didn't cover as well, and I could get that olive color back. So, yeah, I think I may go blue with her hair. And go paler with the skin up from this green-brown. And then I've got to figure out some clothes, which may go brown. I may go brown with these tendrils. And brownish with some... But the nice thing is we have a precedent, right? We've got the brown working into this rose pink. So if I do go brown down here, I can put like hints of pink and purple into these mushrooms down on the base. And that would kind of make them look a little more interesting. Yeah, I loved those reds, though, because they were so intense, and you could build up an amazing red with them. The like, GW Original Blood Red. Those were when they were using an all-acrylic formula, and then they totally swapped it and went for the high-coverage paint instead. But I missed the originals. Actually, those colors, Grey Mouser, are what the Reaper Clears were based on. Because after they killed them, I was like... We really need these pure pigment colors. And so I made clear red, clear yellow, clear green, clear blue, clear magenta. Yeah, so that's kind of this is kind of a sage color. So we're going to continue to bring this green up though, and I may even bring it up with a bit of skin tone as well to do that complementary color thing. Just to add a little bit of life to her skin. So I may bring this green up with these, which could be very interesting, but I'm still going to keep this green horse syndrome. It doesn't look like what it's going to turn out to look like. So yeah, we'll have to see how this works. And I also did like when I was glazing my coral color over the top of this. I'm going to have to get a sticky note out and write down all my color combos and recipes. I'm never going to remember it. But yes, so we've at least figured out kind of where we're going with Ms. Mushroom Queen. Like we have a start. We have two main colors, which are the colors that's on the Myconid guy that we are using for our inspiration. So we are using the pinky coral and the brown that's on him, and we are using something that's very close to the green that's on him. So now I need to add that blue tone that's working off of him. And we add some darker shadows and highlights and more brown. So yeah, we're getting there. We're at least moving in the right direction. I could also make the blue, like make her bikini and her outfit, more of a blue. We could go that way. So I need to figure out where I'm going to put my blue next is the next step. Yeah, fungus is totally fun. Fungus. That's why it's fungus. Oh, David would totally have yelled at me for that. So, but otherwise, I'm good with these colors. Like, it's going to get better as the green gets lighter. Because right now everything's the same value. Like, especially with the lighter pink, the lighter middle pink is the same value as the green. So, that's an incentive to take that skin higher, much higher. This will turn out to be the shadow color on the skin. But yeah. Yeah, we actually had the sculptor in the chat today, Bryce. It was nice. I'm very happy that Christine had time. Because this, I think, Christine, is possibly like one of your most popular figures. Like, it was one of your first, right? And then I know that it's a super popular model. Okay, so Fungal Queen. Need to always stop and make a note of what you use when you're doing this much mixing, guys. Pink, coral, 2 lotus orange, 1 fire red, 1 bleached linen, or sorry, 1 rosy skin. And then my green is 2 troll hide, 1 driftwood, 1 bleached linen. There. So now I'm good. Now I know roughly what my stuff was. But yes, so that's where we're starting. Starting minis are always a little clumsy until you figure out what you're going to do. But now we have at least a start. So next time, I think, we'll take up the skin, for sure. We'll take it much lighter, and maybe I'll work with some blue, figuring out some blue that might work. For her hair, maybe for her skin as it fades down here, and her hands. Kind of thinking about that. Well, Evan, it's a great habit to get into, like, because a sticky note is super easy. I just keep sticky notes right on my desk, and then I just jot it down. Like, you just saw it. It took all of 30 seconds. And then what I do is, because I usually keep these little cards to, like, remember the company, and if I'm working on a model that's not, not Reaper, but even if it's Reaper, remind myself of the sculptor and of the item number. Then I just stick the sticky note to the back of that, and they just stay together. So then I always have my reference stacked onto my my name. Yeah, some people will actually just take a picture. They'll just take a photo of the paints, but I like to have it like right next to the figure, so I just keep this with the figure on my shelf. You can just go for it. You don't have to make notes, but I like to. Also, the other reason I like to, not even to match the colors I have, but then if I keep this in my little book or on my shelf, then I can remember how to mix this color. If I love this rose color and I want to use it on something else, then I'll have the formula. So it's good to do this, and then maybe also to keep a little color book. I think I have one of the little Stonehenge books, and then you can just swatch the color down, stick it next to it, and that way if you're like, ooh, I remember that rose color I used on the Mushroom Queen, that would be great for this model, then you can actually go and find how to make it, instead of trying to reverse engineer the wheel. And sometimes, if you really like to mix, maybe reverse engineering is just fun and you just do it. But this is the kind of thing that I do just to kind of have a starting off point. Even if I decide this isn't perfect for the next project that I want this color on, at least I'll know a starting point. I can just vary it up. Yeah, I have to survive somehow. I'm only organized out of self-defense, is what I always tell people, because they're like, you're so organized. And I'm like, yes, that's because I have no brain cells and my brain is like a sieve. I have to write it down when I'm thinking of it or I'm doomed. Hey, at least the allergy pill worked, guys. Like, my throat is back to normal. Like, I can breathe. Yeah, color codex, right? And everybody, like, you kind of find, as a painter, you find the way to organize your work and your color schemes that is most efficient for you, right? For me, an external book, unless it's just like this is just kind of a catalog of colors I've mixed that I really like, then it's useful. But I find that having a book around, like, with all of this in it isn't, when I'm working on the figure, isn't as useful as just having this one sticky note with maybe some notes on the complicated colors I've mixed. Or what blue did I use to highlight this black, or, stuff like that. So usually I want my reference very close to the model, so I can just grab both at the same time. But then afterwards, if I want to keep a catalog of, colors that I've mixed that I've really enjoyed, then I would do the other. Yeah, I knew the Benadryl would kick in eventually, Quindy. It was just like, it was kind of hairy until the Benadryl kicked in. I don't know what's out there, but now I'm kind of scared to go for my walk. Although, you know, the Benadryl is still working, so I should be immune, hopefully, on my walk. So, okay, guys, what we did today is we kind of figured out a little bit of elements on our color scheme. We did some wet blending on our cap with this beautiful rosy color. We put kind of a base coat, kind of a medium dark base coat down, which we're going to definitely lighten up to more of a pallid, kind of off-white with a hint of green, like that fungus color, that color you think of as kind of fungal. And we'll do that with the bulk of her. We talked a lot. We talked about a little bit about different brushes. We will work on Lisette tomorrow. Yes, it's a Lisette day tomorrow. So I'm not sure what we're going to be working on. I may want to lighten up her skin a little bit. I haven't decided. But yeah, and then we had tips about organizing colors, color mixing, you know, stuff like that. So it was fun. This was good. I hope you guys are going to have a good day. Hey, it's halfway through, right? I'm losing track of the days. This week is brutal. I'm just saying. But thank you everybody for coming out. Oh, wow, 23 months. I almost got to sing the double sub-anniversary song, Kroniko. Almost. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming out, Christine. I enjoyed having you on the stream. Every 6 days, you'll have your mushroom. Your mushroom queen. We do a 6-day rotation. So next week, it'll be Thursday. And then the week after, it'll be Friday. I do that just so that people who can only tune in 1 day a week always are looking at a different model. So yeah, no problem. Who are we raiding? Who is fortunate enough to receive our raid today, Reaper? Yeah, June. It's almost June. Hey, it's Memorial Day. I almost get to take my little road trip down to Monterey. Looking forward to that. We leave on Friday after the stream. Oh yeah. Miniatures Den with Luca. Join the Alpaca Nation. Vacation Time does that, Coobs. I just can't wait to actually have like almost 4 days off. And get out of here. Like get out of here, drive down the coast, look at pretty things, do some hiking, eat really tasty food, go to art galleries and make notes of color schemes I want to use on my next miniatures. You know. Reaper's still looking for a raid. Super! It'd be good to have you. We're doing Lisette in a very unusual color scheme. It's actually very analogous, unlike this one, which is turning out to be complementary. Complementary +1, as I call it, because we're going to add a blue in. There's probably an actual artist name for that, where you use complementary colors, then you toss in like a sideways color. But I don't know it, so I just call it complementary +1. Wow, Reaper's really looking. Is nobody on? Like, are there no awesome streamers on? Should we go back to Marine Mammal Channel? Offset trinary? Weird. That's just confusing. I'm just going to call it complementary +1. Sometimes, okay, and as somebody who went to art school, I can speak to this. Sometimes the art BS is just BS, and you choose something that actually makes sense. Mocha. Ooh, Mocha be good. Can we raid Mocha, Reaper? We haven't raided Mocha for a long time. And that would be lovely. We rated Dices a lot. Like, we've rated Dices more than we've rated Mocha for sure. Or unless Mocha's just doing video games. If she's painting, though, we should totally raid Mocha. Reaper is like late. Oh, Flickster's on. I like Flickster. He's super funny. I like him a lot. How much crap his chat gives him. Thank God that you guys don't give me that much crap. I would just stop streaming. But he's so good. He takes it in such good humor. I'm a Flickster fan. I'll say it. It's Wildcard Wednesday for Mocha. Man, do I have to text Justin? Is he like totally like out of it? Justin, are you out of it? I'm gonna text him. I'm gonna text him and say, dude, I'm gonna text him with a Raid Mocha question. We've been talking. He may have been distracted. There we go. Yep, there we go. All right, cool, guys. Thank you so much for showing up. It's been fun. I hope you have a lovely rest of your Wednesday and that you're psyched for the holiday weekend if you're in the USA. And if you don't have a holiday weekend, then we are sad for you, but we hope you have fun on your regular weekend. All right? We'll see you tomorrow for Lucette, everybody. Have fun.